Okay. So we're very happy we have your Chandra Prabhu with us here today. And we'd love to hear his reflections on Prapanna Jivanamrita, and then we continue with our reading for today.
Hello, everybody. My Dandavat Pranams, and I have very deep appreciation for this book, especially the one that I have. So I don't want, I can't say so much about what our gurus have said about this book, because I don't feel like I can right now. And my memory is not so well. But I want to say that this specific book was given to me. I inherited it from Shripad Bhakti Premik Siddhanta Maharaj. And so it's a very special book. It's even has a tilak. I don't know if you can see it, but like some orange tilak that he, put on it. I guess it just appeared there. So, and inside of it has a hardback protection. It's a very nice thing about this book. And in that hardback protection, I also keep a picture of, I keep a picture of Gurudev. I can show Srila Govinda Maharaj. Very beautiful picture of Srila Govinda Maharaj. And I keep also a letter that was written to me by Siddhanti Maharaj after he passed away. And it says, "Dear Veer Chandra, my dandavats to you. This is my way of thanking you for all your affection and service. You are a good man. My hope is that you can go and spend some time in India serving there. I got my best training there. What can I say?" Question mark. "Life is short, and now you have your youth, so you can go forth in your service in a powerful way. Take advantage of the opportunity of Navadip. I love you, bro. Siddhanti Maharaj." And then there's a very funny little asterisk at the end. And this wasn't written by him. He had another devotee write this. It was the Jagadananda's wife. Anyways.
You mean Madhumati?
Madhumati. She wrote this for him. And then at the end it says, "The money is for you. Don't give it away. I want you to have it to help you in India." So I can't remember how much he gave me, a couple $100. And yeah, I used it to buy a ticket to India, like I always do, a one-way ticket. Except that time I didn't buy a one-way ticket because devotees wanted me to come back to to California. But yeah, that was in 2010, a few months before Srila Govinda Maharaj passed away, or left this world, or he disappeared from my eyes. And yeah, so that's why this book is so important to me, because it's something I got from Siddhanta Maharaj, and he had a trunk full of interesting things in India that we got to see what was inside. And like there was a surfing DVD about big wave surfers, and if you know the story about Siddhanta Maharaj, he was a surfer before he came to the devotees in ISKCON. And yeah, I don't want to go too much farther into that whole story, but I just wanted to make that point. And what can I say? Everything is here for the newcomers and for the old comers. So I don't know where I fit in that, because I feel like I've been through a lot already, but at the same time I'm so green. So feel so like there's so much more. So, and you all know this, but so this is very important for us to read and have and be inspired by. So that's all I have to say.
That was so beautiful, Veer Chandra Prabhu. So beautiful, very heart touching. And for those of you who don't know Siddhanti Maharaj, he was actually one of the very first disciples of Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. He actually had inspiration to do Nagar Sankirtan, like in the streets, like before devotees knew that was a thing. So he led the first Harinam party out, maybe on the streets of Los Angeles or something like that. And he didn't know like this was a thing, you know, and some devotees weren't sure about what he was doing. And then they checked with Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada later, and he was like, yeah, that like that's what we're all about. But he was like such a natural devotee, and Srila Swami Maharaj called him a pure devotee. Gurudev called him a pure devotee. Srila Swami Maharaj personally gave him some Radha Krishna deities. And Gurudev said about him, if my devotees will take his foot dust, they will get Guru Bhakti. You know, he was top devotee, and so simple. For those of you who knew him in person, he's so simple hearted, you know, so loving, so affectionate, so simple, and just totally focused on serving Gurudev, but also taking care of Gurudev's devotees. That's what was so special about him. And then Veera Chandra Prabhu, like the main reason I have so much appreciation for Veera Chandra Prabhu is that he personally served Siddhanti Maharaj in his final days. Siddhanti Maharaj, he had cancer of like his lymph nodes around his face, something like that. And it was pretty heavy what he went through in the end. He couldn't eat, he couldn't speak. And so Veera Chandra Prabhu was the principal devotee who took care of him. And so it's beautiful to see how Siddhanti Maharaj reciprocated. And I mean, like, what better gift than Prapanna jivanamrtam? Like, like how better to show your appreciation. My God, that is so beautiful. And so like you got the book on surrender from the most surrendered devotee. That is just so amazing. So anyway, we feel really happy and honored to have Veera Chandra with us today. Please, will you continue our reading? So the publisher's note by Srila Gurudev, and maybe like you can pause every now and again and share any of your thoughts or leave a gap in case anyone else wants to say anything. I think we have Nrsinga Prabhu with us now. So Nrsinga Prabhu, please jump in. Is Nrsinga Prabhu here somewhere? Varun, did you get him?
I just called him. He said he'll join. He's at
Okay.
yeah, he's separate from me now. So I changed my name.
Okay, you've got to like tie him to you.
Yeah, I called him. I woke him up.
Okay. And Lalita Madhav is also not here. Anyway, we've got Veera Chandra, we've got gold. So please, Veera Chandra Prabhu, please continue.
Okay. All glory to the Divine Master and the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Publisher's note. This is where we continue, yeah?
That's right, yeah.
Sri Sri Prapajivanamritam, the life nectar of the surrendered souls, is the crown jewel of divine literatures as the eternal elixir of life for the exclusively surrendered souls. The bestower of the perpetual relish of full-fledged nectar, and the awakening and sustaining fountainhead of life in divine consorthood. Indeed, who can fittingly portray her holy glory and renown? In the same way, we cannot but feel ever inadequate when we attempt to sing the glories of the illustrious author, our most worshipful divine master, Om Vishnupad Srila Srila Bhakti Rakak Shirar Dev Goswami Maharaj, the dearmost intimate attendant of the great pioneer, preeminent among the Gaudiya Acharjas, Sri Gauranga's transcendental message incarnate, Prabhupada Sri Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur. Even without world itineracy, The seat of universal Guru, Jagat Guru, of the world's renowned gurus has been gracefully won by Srila Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj while presiding in the grand, noble distinction of his venerable years of devotional life at the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat of Navadip, his exclusive personal holy place of Bhajan. Since its first printing, which was in Bengali, this sublime literature has brought heartfelt satisfaction to the stalwart devotees of the highest order, being hailed by them as an essential scripture to be unfailingly sung and cultivated as a daily devotional function in spiritual life. As is customarily practiced with the holy scriptures, such as the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in both the Eastern and Western countries, its English publication will doubtlessly be similarly worshipped with the utmost reverence, constantly studied and sung with devotion by the surrendered souls of fine theistic intellect, and by the noble souls engaged in their divine search for the Supreme Lord. This monumental work was originally composed in the Sanskrit language. The authentic Bengali translation that was sanctioned by the author is extremely developed, profoundly exploring the heart of the book. Scholars who know the internal conclusive scriptural purports can alone realize how difficult is its translation and publication into English. However, by the boundless mercy of the most magnanimous Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Chandra, the fountainhead of all incarnations of Godhead, and by the causeless grace of his most beloved, our divine master, and the pure devotees whose hearts are absorbed in divine love, this formidable task has now been fulfilled. Thus, I again and again worship the holy lotus feet of them all for their tireless efforts to usher in the advent of the present edition in its perfectly elegant form. All those God brothers and God sisters who served in the various facets of the publication have attained the unending graces of our Divine Master and the Vaishnavas. They have bound us in eternal gratitude for executing the task of the English translation, proofing, and editing. Special mention is due to Tridandi Swami Sripad Bhakti Ananda Sagar Maharaj, assisted by Shriman Nimai Sundar Brahmachari Vidya Vinod, and for their dedicated effort in securing the necessary funds and assistance for the printing and publishing of the work in a most dignified presentation. Special mention is due to Sripad Dayadara Gauranga Das Brahmachari Bhakti Prabhakara Prabhu and all the good devotees assisting him. In conclusion, invoking the charming verse of Sri Guru Pada Padma, this humble servant earnestly prays at his holy lotus feet that this crown jewel of sacred writings, Sri Sri Prapanna Jivanamrtam, may remain with her merciful presence in every land, in every home, and in every heart, and in her gracious acquiescence. May she acknowledge the glorious victory of her goodwill by churning and overflooding the entire living universe with her supramundane wave of ecstatic love, to bless all souls with the supreme good fortune. Shri Srimad Bhagavat Padambuja Madhu Svadot Savai Satpadair Nikshipta Madhu Bindavash Cha Parito Grashta Kat Gunjitahai Yatnai Kinchit Iharintam Nija Parashreyo Itna Tanmaya Buyo Buya Ito Rajanshi Pada Sanglagnani Tesham Bhaje. The bees intoxicated in the festival of drinking the honey of the Lord's lotus feet, busily humming the glories of the Lord. Drops of honey from their mouths fall and scatter all around. For my divine prospect, I've carefully collected some of those drops herein, and thus do I worship the dust of the holy lotus feet of those saints again and again. I beg to remain most humbly, Sridandi Bhikshu Sri Bhakti Sundar Govinda. Okay.
Thank you, Virchandra Prabhu. Do you want to share any thoughts on that?
I think I think everyone knows that that last Sanskrit composition was by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, but maybe it's not so clear, but it was, and we'll hear it again later in the book. So it's one of my favorite things I've ever heard in my life. That's all I can say. So
Well, Gurudev said the same thing. That he mentioned in particular two verses that were his most favorite, and this is one of them. Very, very beautiful verse. And as Prabhu said, we will come to it again. It's in the final section of the book. So we have Nrsimha Chaitanya Prabhu with us now. Prabhu, do you want to share any thoughts? We've just been through the publisher's note written by our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj. Do you want to share any thoughts on that?
Well, no, I mean, I actually just tuned in, so I caught the end of it. So I I don't have anything to say just yet. I don't have my book open yet, so I just caught the tail end. So
Okay. All right. I'll just share a few things that come to mind. And then maybe others also. I mean, it's so beautiful, and you know, one important thing to remember as we're going through this, that everything in connection with Krishna consciousness has a personal aspect. So Prapanna Jivanamrita is actually a person. You know, she is her own divine being. And this last invocation, benediction of Gurudev's is very beautiful. May she remain with her merciful presence in every land, in every home, and in every heart. So for our benefit, Gurudev's invoking this benediction upon us. And actually my mother, Divya Shari, she had a very mystical experience once with Prapanna Jivanamrita. She was going through this period, she was having a moment of just intense, like one of those moments where it's like you're like on the edge of a cliff and everything's spinning, and she was desperately clutching on to Prapanna Jivanamrita. And then she had this very mystical experience, like feeling this presence entering the room. And she sent a letter to Gurudev later, like describing what happened and asking him, like, what was this? Was this something real, or was this just my imagination? And Gurudev told her, like no, Prapanna Jivanamrita came to bless you because you were experiencing such difficulty. Prapanna Jivanamrita came to give her mercy to you. That was how he responded. So we're not just coming to an ordinary book here, but this is an actual living scripture, living being, and she has capacity to bless us. Last week's discussion was so interesting, and I think one of the biggest points that we all took away from it was how, you know, this mood, how Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote this to help people, help persons, devotees who were in a mood of helplessness and desperation. And I think many of us have had, you know, Govinda Nandini mentioned it, and I mean, it's something I've experienced as well. Like, I think many devotees have experienced those moments in their lives when we're feeling that desperation, and we find solace, we find comfort, we find relief in the holy verses of Sri Sri Prapanna Jivanamrita. I mean, for myself, I remember the time when Prapanna Jivanamrita helped me the most is when I was working in a bookstore for about a year. And sometimes I joke that it was the most Krishna conscious experience that I've had in my life because I was so miserable working in the bookstore and dealing with all these people and all their different ideas every day, that it just really drove me to this point of seeking shelter. And I used to go out on my lunch break every day, and I'd sit in this nearby park. I'd eat my lunch and I'd read Prapanna Jivanamrita. No, it gave me so much comfort at that time. So anyway, that's one point. You know, I mean, we are cautious to bring our own experiences into this, but this is like an exception here that we're sharing in this way. And a few other things. One other interesting thing I wanted to mention, Gurudev points out that this book was originally published in Sanskrit. And actually, this is an unfinished service that Gurudev, because it was originally composed in Sanskrit, but it's never actually been published in Sanskrit. There's a Bengali translation and the English translation, but the original Sanskrit by itself has never been published. And that was something Gurudev wanted. It's something, you know, to put on our bucket list. Maybe Lalita Madhaprabhu one day can help with that. He wanted it because obviously not many people would be able to actually read that, but just for the dignity of who Srila Sridhar Maharaj is and what Chaitanya Saraswati is, Gurudev wanted to do that. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot in here which Gurudev is expressing. It's very packed. You know, Gurudev's mentioning, like, without Srila Sridhar Maharaj traveling, he naturally assumes the seat of world guru, because so many came from around the world to see him. You know, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj actually, he joked about that himself. He said, you know, Muhammad could not go to the mountain, so the mountain came to Muhammad. And that was really the case with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He was, you know, he was invited to the West, you know, many times. Srila Saraswati Thakur wanted to send him to London preaching. Then also Srila Swami Maharaj's disciples, they wanted to bring him to the West also at one point. But you know, that never happened. Srila Sridhar Maharaj was never eager for taking that kind of prominent role. But anyway, Srila Sridhar Maharaj didn't go out, as Gurudev was mentioning here, but everyone came to him. And so he naturally assumed this position of Jagat Guru, world Guru. And then Gurudev's mentioning how also this is something to remember. Like, it's one thing for us, like we're like kindergarten kids getting all excited about this, and that's, you know, that's okay, that's cool. But it's not only us, but as Gurudev's pointing out here, stalwart devotees of the highest order, like they are supremely nourished and appreciative of Prapanna Jivanamrita. Like I think Lalita Madhaprabhu mentioned in our last meeting how like there was one godbrother in particular, every day he used to, or maybe it was Nrsimhaprabhu mentioned it, every day he used to read one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and when Prapanna Jivanamrita came out, he switched to Prapanna Jivanamrita. You know, like it's that level of a scripture. You know, it's worthy of being studied and cultivated every day, as Gurudev is mentioning here. Okay, I think that's all. I don't want to go on too much. And also Gurudev just mentions how beautiful, how it's the most beautiful book that we have. It's so beautiful. It's a very nice expression of how substance and form, they meet together, because that's what we aspire for, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj has mentioned. Okay, does anyone else want to share anything? Maybe Suvasini Didi?
I just want to make one question.
Yes.
About the preface. I have this preface made by Nrsimhananda Brahmachari.
Yes. Wait, I can't hear you.
I don't know if I am. Did you hear my question?
No, now I can hear you now. You went out for a few seconds.
Okay. This preface written by Sri Nrsimhananda Brahmachari. We have this in the Portuguese edition. If you could say something.
What's your question?
Just if you could say something about this. If I don't know if we are going to read it.
We already read it, the preface.
Written by.
Read it last week.
No, the editor's note, isn't it? By Gurudev, wasn't it that?
No, just now we read Gurudev's publisher's note, and last week Lalita Madhava read
Oh, sorry.
Read the preface by Nishingananda. Yeah. I know we definitely read it. Okay. Okay. Anything else, Nishinga Prabhu? Any inspiration now before we move on to the first chapter?
No, I was just listening, but I have nothing to say at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, I will I'll start with the first verse then. Okay, so we are in we are in chapter 1, Upakramamritam, prelude to approaching nectar. And actually one comment of Shuddha Shava Prabhu is very, very nice. Just he made a very nice comment about how there's so much nectar in this, like at every step it's nectar. There's different types of nectar. We have the nectar, when you're approaching, then there's the nectar in the course of the book, and then there's also at the end, there's remnants of nectar. And the name of the book is also Nectar and the Lives of the Surrendered Soul. So there's all varieties of nectar here at every step. So chapter 1, all glories to
Vishaka,
divine. Yes.
what about the forward?
Oh yeah, well, we made that homework actually.
Okay, got it. Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because it's very long and it would take several weeks to get through it. And also it's not actually a part of the original publication. It is something that Sagar Maharaj compiled and he included in the English edition. But it is really, really beautiful. And it's, like David Sheesh commented, it's a gamut of the whole of our Siddhanta. It's a concise presentation of all of Mahaprabhu's teachings. So it's very valuable for us to read it, definitely.
Jai.
Okay.
Okay.
So chapter 1, Upakramamritam, prelude to approaching nectar. So verse 1, Ata Mangala Charanam, auspicious invocation. And maybe, I mean, this was mentioned, I believe, by Lalita Madhava last week, but we can just review it again because we're actually here now. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this book, you'll see that before each verse, there's a line preceding it. And so those are Srila Sridhar Maharaj's own original illuminations, like drawing out the essence of the verses. So they're very, very helpful. And as we were laughing last week about, there was one edition made which was excluding these illuminations, and Shuddha Shava joked that it was the book without the book. Because this is the most valuable thing for us, actually, like these original illuminations, which have come directly from Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And there's a very like this book is so, and this is another nice point Lalita was making last week, that there is something really, what's the word? There's something very great just in the capacity to compile. Giving the substance, of course, that is one type of very appreciable offering. But then there's all like that position of Vyas, to be able to compile, to organize and present. There's also something that takes very high quality to do. It's not just like, oh, anybody can do that. So the way that Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's like surveying the scriptures and collecting and compiling and presenting in a very specific way. There's an order, there's a system here. And then he's also drawing out, the essence of each of these verses. So like point by point, and also as a whole, it's all been very carefully thought out. And so this first chapter is primarily Srila Sridhar Maharaj's original verses. There's like 2 or 3 citations from other texts, but otherwise it's all his own original verses. And then also the last chapter is primarily Srila Sridhar Maharaj's original verses. And then in between, he's citing verses and then with his own, presenting with his own illumination about them. So yeah, so here we go. Ata Mangala Charanam. And then also I'd like to mention too, there's a particular system that we'll find in Sanskrit compositions. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's following that system. And so like the Mangala Charanam, like invoking auspiciousness, invoking grace from our guardians. This is always the first thing. You'll see that in any authentic and serious Vaishnav composition, like not only Sanskrit, but like also in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's always some system there. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj is following that system. Mangala Charanam, invoking grace, prayer to the Ishta Devata, to one's Ishta Devata means one's most worshipable deity. That's in the next verse. And then the main subject of the book, and so on and so forth. It's all being presented in a very, careful and systematic way. Okay, so without further ado, Ata Mangala Charanam, auspicious invocation. Shri Guru Gaur Gandharva Govinda Gringanaisaha Vande Prasada Toye Sham Sarvanamba Shubhankaraha. I make my obeisance unto the lotus feet of my divine master, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Gandharva Giridhari, Shri Radhan Krishna, and their associates. By their grace, all endeavors are successful. Sarvanamba Shubhankaraha, this phrase, all beginnings. The word endeavor is not fully complete, actually. I don't think we have a Sanskritin here, but as I recall, the word aramba, it refers to, it's not just an endeavor, but like a beginning. Suvasini, do you know a little Sanskrit? Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's aramba is like beginning. Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
So, in the cultivation of devotion, how you begin something is very important. Like to do something and then to offer it, that doesn't classify as proper devotion, actually. That goes into the category of karma mishra bhakti. Like you've done something and then you're offering it. No, because in devotion, it's all about consciousness. So from the very beginning, at every step, you have to be offering. First you offer and then you do. And this is a famous expression of Sridhar Swami in one of his commentaries in the Bhagavatam. Ado arpita paschat kriyeta. First you offer and then you do. First you offer yourself and then you do. So this is very crucial in the cultivate, in the practice of bhakti. that from the start there's this conscious offering, to Guru, to Vaishnava, to the Lord and his associates. So Sarvanamba Shubhankara, by their grace, all beginnings, all endeavors, they will be Shubha, they will be auspicious. Any further comments on that from anyone? Jayadev Prabhu, any thoughts? Sure.
It's just so wonderful. I just love these verses. This one and the next one and the next 3, I thought that maybe I would try to write them down and bring them into my daily Mangala Charanam that I do, before I chant these verses too, because they're so nice.
Yeah, these three first verses in particular, they're very beautiful, very, very beautiful.
Yeah, wonderful.
Nishinga Prabhu, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what I can say, what I think is that this like is a very beautiful principle of surrender at the very beginning. In this verse, what Guru Maharaj is writing, that we should be aware of our dependency on Krishna's mercy. So you can say that, you know, everything that we do in life is dependent on Krishna's mercy. Um, mundane be like mundane endeavors, all that, but you can achieve success in a mundane endeavor, you know, depending on Krishna's will unknowingly. So if we say not even a blade of grass can move without the will of God, then it means that everything that people are doing in this world, whatever they're striving for, they're also dependent, like what this verse is saying. You can say all endeavors, success is dependent on the mercy of Krishna. So even people that aren't pursuing Krishna consciousness, whatever their effort is, it's only successful ultimately because Krishna sanctions or Krishna allows that result. So it's dependent on his mercy, but unknowingly. And there's certain things which someone can achieve success in, not being aware that they're depending on the Lord's mercy for that to reach fruition. But in devotion, in devotional life, if surrender is our goal, or if taking shelter of Krishna is our goal, that's something that you can't do without being aware that you're dependent on his mercy. Like sometimes there's an idea that, you know, in spiritual life, someone can take it up as a mechanical process. I'm going to do this amount of this amount of this amount of this, and get this exact result. Independent, in that type of mentality, a person isn't aware that their behavior and their effort isn't complete on its own, that your effort to reach a spiritual destination is completely dependent on the grace of that place where you're trying to go. Your own effort won't stand on its own. And so right from the very beginning, when Guru Maharaj is speaking about surrender, writing about surrender, he's addressing this point that if this is the goal, if this is the aspiration, then right from the very beginning, you should be aware that you're dependent on Krishna's mercy. That's the real living evaluation of what surrender is and what devotion is, that you're trying to reach him and you're dependent upon his grace to achieve that. And to remember that at the very beginning of all of our devotional efforts, it means that we approach it with a proper mood of surrender, with a proper mood of dependency, that we don't feel or assume consciously or unconsciously that our own effort is complete in itself. That when we're trying to achieve shelter, dependency on mercy is the real nature of that attempt. And so just to clarify that and set that mind state or that type of consciousness at the very beginning of our approach, it's a very pivotal point. And so Guru Maharaj, the first verse is, in a sense, getting right at the heart of the matter. What type of mood, what type of consciousness we should approach devotion, and more specifically surrender, what type of consciousness we should approach it with. And that is awareness of our dependency on Krishna's mercy and his associates and devotees. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Nishinga Prabhu. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, we we have to, there's this kind of like flipping process that has to take place where, like, it's not like I'm holding this book in my hands as an object within my possession, but this is actually a super subjective entity beyond my perception, actually. And I'm praying to that entity to mercifully reveal herself, so that this mood of dependency on an invisible, what is at present an invisible entity to us, that is that's at the crux of all of this. Veer Chandra Prabhu, any thoughts?
I'm just happy to be here. So happy. So continue on. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next verse. And we have Giridhari Prabhu with us now. Dandavat Giridhari Prabhu. So we are on verse, we're on verse number 2. Gora Vag Vigraham Vande, Gorangam, Gora Vaibhavam, Gora Sankirtanonmatam, Gora Kadunya Sundaram. Now this verse, it's actually a very profound verse, and I'm disappointed we don't have Alita Madhava with us today, because he's a Sanskritian and he could help us to go a bit deeper into this verse. But I can share something, and maybe some other devotees here can also share some insight into this verse. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's here. He's offering his so this is like, as I mentioned, prayer to the Ishta Devata, which is a part of like the system in this world of higher literature. This is his prayer here to his worshipful deity. And so that is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But he's offering his obeisance to him in a very particular way, where he's envisioning him as the embodiment, as the personification of the divine message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there's this phrase here, Gaura Saraswati, which has been used in the translation, the deity. I make my obeisance unto the deity Gaura Saraswati. And so this is like it's like there's some layers of meaning here. Saraswati is indicating Saraswati Thakur, but the word Saraswati, it also indicates speech, words, message. So Gaura Saraswati, it can mean the divine message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then that's also indicating Saraswati Thakur as the embodiment of the divine message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Gora Vag Vigraham Vande, Gorangam, Gora Vaibhavam, Gora Sankirtanonmatam, Gora Karunya Sundaram. I make my obeisance unto the deity Gora Saraswati, the personified message, Gora Vag Vigraha. Vag also means like words, speech, along these lines. Vigraha means a deity. So this is the Vigraha. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is being envisioned here as the Vigraha, as the deity, the divine personification of the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I make my obeisance unto the deity Gaura Saraswati, the personified message of the golden Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose bodily luster is of a beautiful golden hue, like that of the self-same Lord Gaur Sundar. So the word Gaur, right, it means gold also, refers to Mahaprabhu, also means gold. So Gaurangam, Anga means his body. So Gaurangam can mean golden body, as well as the body of Mahaprabhu. Who is the personal expansion of that Supreme Lord, Gaura Hari. And this word Gaura Vaibhav, this word Vaibhav, one of the meanings is extension. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj is envisioning his Gurudev as the extension of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And another meaning of the word Vaibhav, which Srila Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj pointed out, is that it also can mean wealth. And so another meaning here can be that he is the wealth of Mahaprabhu, And also the other way around, that Mahaprabhu is his wealth. Who is always intoxicated by preaching the message of that golden Lord. Gaur Sankirtanonmatam. He's unmatam. He's maddened by the Sankirtan of Mahaprabhu. And which is an interesting expression, because actually, how are we for time? It's okay. We're almost out of time. We'll just finish with this verse. I don't want to go too much over. There is a class of Janardamars. I don't want to be disrespectful. So it's an interesting expression, because we've heard how Srila Saraswati Thakur, he was extremely restrained in the kirtan. And one of the, he would, Srila Sridhar Maharaj has mentioned, like, he wouldn't generally sing even, wouldn't dance, wouldn't sing in the kirtan. And the reason for that is because he was dealing in a particular atmosphere of the Gaudiya group, when there was a lot of imitationism, a lot of persons who would imitate divine emotion. Like, and it actually, it still goes on. I've witnessed it myself. People in kirtan will just fall on the ground, start flailing around, start crying, and I'm just like, come on, like, are you really on that type of level? Like
The mosh pit?
Sorry, what did you say, Prabhu?
I said, can I join the mosh pit? Like,
The
like,
mosh pit.
yeah. Can I join? Like, not that mood, but it just reminds me of that.
Yeah. Or like I've heard of one example. Someone told me they witnessed at one gathering. One of the lines in our songs, it says how it describes Nityananda Prabhu as a golden mountain rolling on the ground. And so at that phrase, there were some devotees who fell onto the ground and started rolling like a mountain. So like this was quite prevalent at the time of Srila Saraswati Thakur. And so he was showing that it's not that that we will objectively assume this type of posture and behavior and then divine feeling will come, but it's rather the opposite. First, there has to be the awakening of consciousness. First, there has to be the awakening of the heart. And then irresistibly by force, you won't be able to stop yourself from, then, as a result of that, this display may come as, consequently, but not the other way around. Hridaya hoite bale, shabda rupe, Hriday hoite bale, shabda rupe, nache anukan, this song of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Forcefully from the heart to the tongue. That's the transaction, not the other way around. That's the sequence. From the heart to the tongue. Forcefully, bole, not from the tongue to the heart. So Srila Saraswati Thakur was dealing with this type of environment. And so that's why he assumed this deep sobriety in kirtan. To show like those types of symptoms, they're very high. We can't jump to them so easily or cheaply. So he generally was very sober. However, internally, he had such deep divine emotion. And there were rare occasions when that would come out of him, when he couldn't stop that. And maybe we won't go into that too much today. But there were some occasions like that where his devotees witnessed this, something that irresistibly came out of him. And we've also heard descriptions of how sometimes when he was preaching, when he was speaking about the glories of Mahaprabhu, this divine emotion would come out of him. We heard one description of him like pounding the table, his face flushing like a lotus flower, red and white and pink, and it was mentioned that, I understood what the phrase lotus face meant, like when I saw that, so that, that divine intoxication that was of, out of the Sankirtan Mahaprabhu, that was also within him. Although it wasn't always, necessarily in an obvious and public way. and whose divine beauty blooms in the revelation of Lord Gauranga's mercy potency. And Sagarmarj has included a note here. This is the fundamental meaning of the verse within the scope of the Sanskrit language. Various expanded purports may be drawn from the original. Nrsimha Prabhu, you have any further insight into this verse you want to share?
No, I was just listening. I was happy to listen because I know when it says in like the little asterisks there that there's many possible explanations, and I never actually heard them, but just now you were going through some of them, so I was just happy to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Those are a few. And as I said, I wish we had Lalita Madhav with us because he could elaborate more, but we can ask him next week. Hopefully he'll be here. Okay, well, I don't want to go on too long. We can have short and sweet meetings. Does anyone else want to share anything? Kamala, anything you want, any thoughts?
No, I just I echo what has been said, really. I mean, it's amazing that these verses have so many levels of meaning that can be brought out by the devotees. But as you say, I think it takes a little bit of Sanskrit knowledge to do so. So hopefully next week we'll be able to do that some more.
Yes, yes. Giridhari Prabhu, I know you came a little late, but do you have anything you want to share? We're always very happy to hear from you.
Hare Krishna, I'm sharing Haribol.
Kunti, any reflections on our discussion today?
I'm just in awe and feeling really good. I'm so happy to be here. But can I ask, somebody in the beginning was mentioning, I don't know if I heard correctly. Is there a festival going on with Avadut Maharaj in the next week or two? Is that what I just heard?
Okay, Varun, thanks for joining us. Anything you want to share before you leave?
No, thank you. Thank you all for your discussion. I'm just listening, learning, and absorbing.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
We'll
thank you. See ya.
So Veer Chandrapur, you were speaking about this festival.
Yeah, Kunti, I will send you my contact and let you know all about it. It's happening, pretty much it'll be a festival here in Ukraine for the next month, basically, because Avadut Maharaj, he's coming here, and so is Keshvananda Prabhu from
When
Italy.
will Maharaj be there?
I think Avadut Maharaj will arrive at the end of the first of maybe July 7th or July 8th. I think most of the devotees are coming then.
I am coming, and I'm bringing my husband. I'm going to try so hard to come because I would love to see Maharaj.
Nice. Okay.
This is wonderful. Shaka,
Yeah,
you should come.
Anybody else before we sign off? Jayadev, Chintamani, any final reflections?
Dandavat, Siri, Dandavat, all dear devotees. Yeah, it was nice just having a different realization of the Gauda Saraswati deity. And I was picking that up too, that it's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but it's also Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And it's also the message coming through Gauranga, Gauravag Vigraham. And then also I was wondering, this is just a question, because I'm not like one of those people that can pull out all the Sanskrit. I got more everything you just said. I was wondering if Gaurangam could also be his limbs, and Gaura Vaibhavam could be his associates as well, extending out from him as like his bodily limbs, like Gaura Angam, like his arms, his limbs, if that makes sense.
You're saying Gaur Angam in the sense of his Anga in the sense of associates, like that?
I was just wondering, because I was trying to figure out, they got me all thinking, this is the fundamental meaning of the verse. What other meanings could we find? I was trying to find other meanings in the verse. Like it kind of like primed me to try to look for it,
I mean that phrase anga, it is used in that way elsewhere in you know, the famous verse Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sango Pangashta Varsha. It is used there in that sense. And then what would be the meaning in the context of the verse as a whole?
Because then would his Vaibhav also be sort of like his associates and the devotees coming out, like his entourage expanding out from him as the, again, it's all total speculation. I'm just trying to dig for the other meanings since we don't have someone here that can tell us.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps, yeah, the verse can be read in more of a general way. I was reading it more as like a specific prayer to a specific being, but perhaps it can be read in a broader, as a like a broader glorification. Yeah, well, let's keep those questions on the list for Lalita next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, any last points of Suvasini Didi? Any final words?
No, Didi. No, actually, everything. That's nice, beautiful.
Okay, Veer Chandra Prabhu, give us some sweet closing words, please.
I just can't express to you all how happy I am to see everybody, hear Nishringa's beautiful lion-like voice, and no, just hear the illuminations of the devotees, and I don't know, I just feel so fortunate, and I want to apologize for my side because I'm so bad at social media and even catching Zooms, which are readily going on all the time. So anyways, I will really try to make this a habit to come because it's so inspiring. So thank you, everyone. My Dandavat Pranams to you all. Hope to see you in person soon. And feel free to come to Ukraine. I'm here with open arms, waiting for my friends. So,
well, we're
yes.
so grateful that you joined us today. You're an inspiration for all of us. Okay, so we'll close here. And look forward to seeing you all next week and continuing the discussion. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Shri Bhakti Lakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Shri Prapanna jivanamrtam ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanand.